Hey everybody, Jeff Miller here from Target Test Prep, head of GRE instruction. In today's video, we are going to discuss some tips on the best way to study for the GRE. Tip number one of my favorites, use a topic by topic study approach. So what does that mean, topic by topic? Well, there is a ton you'll have to learn for the GRE. We all know this. Between quant and verbal. On quant, you'll have to learn topics like rates, like work, linear and quadratic equations, coordinate geometry, regular geometry. And then on the verbal side, you've got a lot of different question types and yes, a ton of vocab included in many of those. But then on top of it, also critical reasoning and reading comprehension. So what do? Do you try to study all these topics at once? No, you don't. You study them one at a time. So as an example on the math side, let's say you're learning about geometry. You learn everything you need to about geometry. You learn about all the area and perimeter formulas for squares, rectangles, circles, hexagons, etc. You get those down. You do some practice as you're learning them, but then you really dive in to topical practice after your topical learning. The purpose of that is to make sure there's no holes. The purpose of that is to ensure that everything you learn has actually stuck. Based on the results of that practice, you go back, you fill in gaps, and then you rinse and repeat with other topics. This is a great way to learn because there is so much to learn. And if you make your learning randomized, it's going to be hard to get any footing in any one topic. So focus on topical learning and topical practice as the main way that you're prepping for the GRE. Tip number two, make sure you alternate between your quant and your verbal prep. A lot of people say, you know what? I'm going to learn all of my quant for a couple months and then do all of my verbal for a few months after that. Now, what's the issue with that? The issue is a lot of what you learn during that quant period is going to get lost because you're not going to be focused on it even a little bit while you're learning verbal. So what do you do instead? You alternate. It doesn't mean you have to alternate hour by hour or even day by day. Focus on learning a math topic first, then move on to a verbal topic second, and then rinse and repeat, ping pong back and forth between your quant and verbal topics. Doesn't mean you're not going to also do review throughout this process. We'll talk about that shortly, but it's very important that you don't try to do all of one topic and then all of one section and then all of another section. Make sure you're alternating between the two. Tip number three, take notes and make flashcards while you are learning. So we just talked about the fact that you're going to have to do review in your preparation. A great way to do that review is through the notes you're making and through the flashcards you're creating. Remember, you're going to have very serious study sessions, let's say when you're sitting down at your desk with your laptop open, looking through a study course like TTP. I get that. But then there's got to be ways that you can study on the fly, or what we also call quick hit study sessions, where maybe you're not sitting at your desk. Maybe it's the middle of your workday and you have lunch, or you have 15 minutes to spare and you can pull out that notebook, pull out those flashcards and get a little prep in, because there's a ton you're learning. We say this, I say this a lot. Think about all the vocab words you have to learn. If you don't have those somewhere accessible, you're going to forget them very quickly and easily. So the key for you is make those notes and flashcards while you're studying. And remember, you're not just making notes to convert them to flashcards, although that's one good reason. You're also making them because you want to be an active reader, an active participant in how you're learning. If you're reading text about the GRE, quant, or verbal, and you're just reading it, telling yourself you understand it, you're going to get to the end and realize there's a lot you missed. But if you're jotting down notes, putting things in your own words, believe me, it's going to sink in more because you're forced to put it into your own words, the way that you're interpreting it, and that's going to go a long way in making things stick. Tip number four, review, review, review. So we just kind of talked about some ways you can review with your notes and your flashcards, but there's a lot of different ways you can. Point is, it has to be a weekly routine of going back and looking at what you've already learned. Now, you have your notes, you have your flashcards. We talked about that. Use them. Keep them near you, whether it's an app or physical flashcards or a notebook, whatever it is, you need to have it on you so you can review and use it at all times. There's other things though. How about taking mixed problem sets from topics you've done weeks or even months earlier? Why is that important? Because then you're going to be able to say, hey, I got an average rate question wrong. Clearly a gap has developed that I didn't realize. So you go back to your prep materials, you go back to your notes, you fill in the gap, and then you rinse and repeat with other quant and verbal topics, right? If you do a critical reasoning question and get a strengthening question wrong, maybe you have a gap in strengthening questions in critical reasoning on the GRE. These are all things you need to do to make sure those gaps don't develop. And then the other way is look at your error log. Having an error log in general is important because it allows you to track the types of mistakes you're making, right? And making fixes on those mistakes. And remember, these aren't all just content mistakes. They're mistakes like rushing, not being able to read your handwriting, choosing a trap answer, etc. So that's important to fix those in real time, but also going back and looking at your error log is another form of review. So you have a lot of things at your disposal to go back and review, and if you don't, you're going to get to test day and you're going to realize, oh wow, I have missed or forgotten way too much to hit my target score. Tip number 5, my final tip, take all the official practice exams and spread them out strategically. There are 5. We always say to take one at the beginning to get a baseline score, so I guess you'd say there's 4 left at the end of your prep. Try to spread them out at least 5 days apart, if not a week, and take them when you're fresh and make sure to get all the data, squeeze all the juice you can from those tests, because that's kind of the final thing you're going to be doing before you take your GRE. So when you get something wrong, hyperanalyze it. Was it a silly mistake or was it a content mistake? If it's a content mistake, figure out why, fill the gap in, and as I said, spread them out, take them when you're fresh. Don't take one after a long day of work because that's going to be a waste of a test. If you have to wait till the weekends to do it, that's fine, but make sure you give yourself plenty of time to take these practice tests leading into test day. And if you can do that and follow the advice I gave you previously in this video, you should be good to go to rock the GRE on test day. That's it for today's video. I had a blast talking about tips of how to study for your GRE. I'm confident if you can follow the advice in this video, you can knock your GRE out. Now, if you liked today's video, please subscribe, and as always, leave comments. We're happy to do more videos of different topics. Just let us know. Thank you for watching. Happy studying, and we'll all talk soon.